Michael had spent the past week on a well-deserved vacation, enjoying the peaceful solitude of a quiet lakeside retreat. As a retired city planner, he had spent decades designing functional and well-structured communities, carefully considering every detail of urban development. He had chosen his home in this town precisely because it was away from the chaos of city life. His backyard stretched for acres, untouched and serene, a perfect escape from the rigidity of the world he had helped build. But as he drove back into town, something felt off. The streets were unusually busy. A strange tension hung in the air, and the moment he turned onto his street, his heart nearly stopped. His backyard, the peaceful oasis he had cherished, was no longer a backyard at all. A set of gleaming steel train tracks ran straight through the property, slicing through the land like an open wound. Massive metal poles lined the edges, and in the distance, an actual train was stationed on the newly laid tracks, ready for service. Michael slammed on the brakes, stepping out of his car as a loud horn echoed through the town. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. His land, his private land, had been ripped apart, and in its place a railway had been built. And worse, his home now stood just 200 meters from the tracks, an impossible, dangerous proximity. His blood boiled, and only one name came to mind: Karen. Karen had ruled over the HOA with an iron fist for years. But this was beyond anything Michael had thought her capable of. He stormed toward the HOA office, his jaw clenched as he envisioned every way this could have happened. As soon as he entered, Karen greeted him with a smug, almost delighted expression. "Ah, Michael," she said, feigning sympathy. "I imagine you've seen the improvements we've made to the community." Michael took a deep breath, restraining the urge to lash out. "Karen, what the hell is going on? There's a train track running through my land. My backyard is gone. Who gave permission for this?" Karen's smile never wavered. "Oh, Michael, I'm afraid you've misunderstood. The town has been in dire need of modernized public transportation. The HOA took it upon itself to collaborate with the railway company to establish a new line." She paused, her eyes gleaming. "It's for the good of the town." Michael's fingers curled into fists. "The town? My land is private property. No one consulted me. You had no right—" "Actually," Karen interrupted, tapping her manicured nails against the desk, "the land was unused for quite some time. Under HOA policy, land that remains unused for extended periods can be repurposed for community benefit." Michael's stomach twisted. "That's ridiculous. That isn't a law. That's theft." Karen sighed, standing up. "Michael, you're welcome to keep your house. The train will run at reasonable hours and will ensure minimal disruptions to your property. However," she leaned in slightly, voice dropping to a whisper, "your house is dangerously close to the tracks. It may become a safety hazard. If you'd prefer to sell, we'd be happy to take it off your hands." Michael's heart pounded. This wasn't negligence. This was a calculated move. Karen had planned this. Michael, despite his fury, knew better than to storm out without a plan. He had spent years dealing with city infrastructure projects, navigating zoning laws, and dismantling bureaucratic red tape. He needed evidence, documentation of how this project had bypassed legal channels. But Karen wasn't going to make it easy. Over the next several days, his life became a waking nightmare. Trains, previously scheduled only for major routes, were suddenly running multiple times a day. The sound was deafening, shaking the very foundation of his home. Calls to the town office were ignored, emails went unanswered, and then his electricity was cut. Karen wasn't just forcing him out, she was making it unbearable to stay. One night, as he lay awake, staring at the ceiling, he realized she had underestimated him. He wasn't just another homeowner she could bully into submission. She had built a train track through the property of a man who had spent his career designing city infrastructure. and she had failed to realize that one of his closest friends was the head of the State Bar Association. Michael wasted no time. He reached out to his old friend, Judge Thomas Reynolds, and within days, they began to dig. The further they investigated, the worse it became. Karen hadn't just approved this railway without proper zoning approvals. She had bribed city officials, falsified ownership documents, and personally received a massive payout from the railway company. Not only that, but the railway itself violated multiple federal safety regulations regarding residential zoning distances. The land itself wasn't even legally transferred. Karen had presented forged documents to make it appear as though the HOA had rightful ownership. But as Michael pieced everything together, Karen wasn't done playing her game. A notice arrived at his door. Immediate removal notice. Your property poses a safety risk due to proximity to railway operations. Michael smirked. She had played her last card. She thought she had won. But by the time she received her next letter, it wasn't from him. It was from a judge. A town-wide meeting was called, and Karen sat in her usual chair, confident, poised. But as Michael stepped up to speak, he wasn't alone. Journalists lined the back of the room, cameras rolling, and Judge Reynolds himself sat among the audience. Michael cleared his throat and held up a folder. Ladies and gentlemen, I have something to share with you today. You all deserve to know the truth. He placed a stack of documents on the table. These are legal records detailing how Karen, your HOA president, forged ownership documents, bribed city officials, and personally profited from the railway company. Gasps echoed through the room. Not only was this railway illegally built, but it also violates multiple zoning and safety laws. And worst of all, Michael's voice hardened. Karen planned to have my home demolished, all for profit. Karen shot to her feet. That's absurd. Michael, you've always been a troublemaker. Troublemaker? Michael held up another document. This is a signed affidavit from a city official admitting to the bribes. This is a copy of the forged land transfer documents. And this, he pulled out the final piece. This is a federal violation report stating that the railway must be removed immediately. The silence was deafening. Within hours, Karen's empire crumbled. The town turned against her, demanding her immediate resignation. The city launched an emergency review, and the judge overseeing the case ruled that the railway was illegally constructed. Karen was hit with massive legal penalties, and the railway company, eager to avoid scandal, agreed to relocate the tracks 5 miles outside of town. Michael's land was returned, his home saved. And Karen? She slunk away in disgrace, leaving the HOA leadership permanently. But the biggest twist? When it came time to elect a new HOA president, there was only one name the town trusted: Michael Carter. And this time, he accepted. The first thing he did as HOA president, implementing ironclad regulations, preventing unchecked power, ensuring that what had happened to him would never happen to anyone else. His land was restored, his peace returned, and most importantly, justice was served. And that's another unbelievable story from the world of HOAs. What do you think? Was justice served, or should things have ended differently? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss another crazy tale. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.